Okay, today we're going to be learning Shabbat Daf Ayin. Today's shir is dedicated for Refuah Shlema for Netanel Ilan Ben Shen and Tzipora. Still very much needs all of our tefillot. And for Judy Shapiro in honor of all of her children. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom, 6 lines from the bottom. Menahane Mile, Hayodea Ikar Shabbat. We ended here. We're now going to go back to the Mishnah, to the different sections of the Mishnah. Again, to repeat the 3 parts of our Mishnah. There was someone who didn't know about Shabbat, okay, Shachach Ikar Shabbat, which the question was, what exactly did that mean? We had a debate, right? Was it a ger shenitgayer, tinok shenishba? Does it include someone like that? Or someone who forgot, he knew about Shabbat at some point, but totally forgot about it down the road. Then we had the second case, Hayodeh Ikar Shabbat, right? And that person obviously is only chayav 1 chatat about all of, once one finds out years later, you haven't been keeping Shabbat, you only have to bring 1. If you're Yodeh Ikar Shabbat and Asam Malachot Harbe B'Shabbatot Harbe, you knew it was Shabbat, but you forgot, you lost track of the days, you didn't realize that today was Shabbat, or I don't know if it's that you lost track, or you just didn't remember that day it was Shabbat, then you have to bring for each Shabbat that you desecrated. Again, we saw Rashi there who says, because it must be you figured it out during the week, and then the question is, does he mean it's only if you figured it out during the week, or it's just we assume if that many days passed and you didn't keep Shabbat? And there's a whole debate, and maybe it connects a little bit with our story in the desert yesterday. And then we had the last case of it's Shabbat, but you didn't know that all the melachot were asur. And then you did a bunch of different melachot. You obligated for each melacha by a separate korban chatat. We're going to deal a lot with that today. Okay, so now we're going to start with Hayodeh Ikar Shabbat. Okay, that was the case, the second case, where you forgot that today was Shabbat. So, Menahane Mile. So what they want to compare right now, first we're going to compare case number 1 and 2, where theoretically, both times you forgot Shabbat. Just one is you forgot the whole concept of Shabbat, and the other is you forgot that today was Shabbat. And yet in one case, you're chayav 1 chatat, and the other, you're chayav for every Shabbat that you desecrated. So where are we going to get that from? Menahane Mile. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Ravua, Trei Chai Ktive. There's 2 psukim. One is V'shamru b'nei Israel et Shabbat. Now notice what Shabbat is referred to there. 1 Shabbat. The Jews kept, right? The Jews should observe the Shabbat. Uchtiv ve'et Shabtotai tishmoru. My Shabbatot you should observe, meaning plural. So what does he say? Haketzad. How could it be Shabbat is singular and Shabbat is plural? V'shamru b'nei Israel et Shabbat means shmira achat l'Shabbatot harbeh. Right? Because it says et HaShabbat, that means you have to do shmira of 1 Shabbat, meaning if you forget Shabbat, well, then you're only chayav 1 chatat. And that's the case where you forgot the whole concept of Shabbat, so you could potentially be chayav only once. That's why it's singular. And then when it says, ve'et shabtotai tishmoru, shmira achad l'chol Shabbat v'Shabbat. That means shabtotai. You could theoretically make a mistake and be obligated for many Shabbatot. That's the second case in the Mishnah. Interestingly enough, and this teaches us a lot about the world of drashot, you could actually say the reverse, and he views it the other way, that each pasuk you matched up in the wrong way. Okay, I kind of explained it logically, it seemed pretty clear, but he's going to say like this. The opposite seems true. V'shamru b'nei Israel et Shabbat is shmira achat l'chol Shabbat v'Shabbat, meaning singular shmira, singular Shabbat. What does that teach you? Each Shabbat is an independent entity. And theoretically, you could be obligated for each Shabbat by itself. So singular actually means more obligations because each Shabbat is separate. Et Shabtotai tishmoru could be shmira achad l'Shabbatot harbeh. Observe my Shabbatot. All of them, you could theoretically be obligated for many Shabbatot, only 1. Okay, so this teaches you that you can basically, now you could probably be convinced by each of them, right? We could basically argue one way, argue the other way. Either which way, it doesn't really make a big difference because either which way we get to the fact that there's 2 different ways of doing this. One way you be chayav 1, and in one way you be chayav many. And obviously it depends on the circumstances, what it was that you forgot. That everybody agrees with. It's just a matter of how we get it from the verses. Hayodea shehu Shabbat. So now we're getting to the third case. So Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. Reisha means the first line in the Mishnah, and the Seifa means the last line, but not in this case. Reisha and Sefer are often, right? Reisha means beginning, Sefer means end. Often it's just relative. So what we're comparing here is case number 2 and case number 3. Okay, why, when, and this is going to be a lot of our debate today or our discussion about the difference between Okay, what the Gemara is going to call, I'll tell you in the words of the Gemara, and actually later I'm going to shorten the words of the Gemara because I find it a very confusing term and it just causes confusion. If you look in Rashi, he says it. This is the way the Gemara is going to refer to it. Shigigat Shabbat v'zadon melachot, or zadon Shabbat v'shigigat melachot. Okay, you can see why if you keep saying them, every time you have to think which one. Eventually, we'll just focus on shigigat this or shigigat that because the zadon shigigat it just confuses. So it's shigigat Shabbat v'zadon melachot means you forgot it was Shabbat, but you didn't. But you remembered. You knew that melachot were asurot on Shabbat. You just didn't remember that today was Shabbat. And zadon Shabbat and shigigat melachot is saying you knew it was Shabbat. You just didn't know that melachot were asurot. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to kind of, when I teach it, I'm going to say shigigat Shabbat versus shigigat melachot because it's going to make it much simpler. If you say that whole zadon Shabbat, shigigat melachot, you can't remember which one we're talking about because they both start with Shabbat. So it just throws you off. It's confusing. So what's the difference between both those cases? Remember, shigigat Shabbat, you have to bring only one for each Shabbat that you did, but only one, you don't have to bring one for every malacha you did on every Shabbat. And shigigat melachot, you have to bring for every single malacha that you did. So Amar Rav Safra, kan miyediat Shabbat hu poresh, v'kan miyediat melacha hu poresh. What's the difference? What they're really saying is, how do you know? It's very confusing because they're all intertwined, right? If you didn't remember with Shabbat, then you didn't remember melachot or asurot, and it's all kind of one and the same. So how does he distinguish? He says it all depends on the moment you found out that you did something wrong. And this is important. This yidiyah, that moment of yidiyah, we're going to see is very important. The verse says, "O hoda alav chatato asher chata." When you hear, you know, there's knowledge about the chet that you did. That's when you're chayav a korban shgaga. So he says that's the moment that's critical. So it's a matter of how are we going to tell the difference between these two? Well, when it's not how we can tell the difference, but why is there a different law? Because when someone came and said to you, don't you know it's Shabbat today? And then you said, oh, I can't believe I didn't realize it was Shabbat. I'm going to stop. Then your chayav, basically, since the yidiyah was about Shabbat, that's going to obligate you. It was one thing they told you about, basically. They said, don't you know Shabbat, right? Shabbat, so you're obligated one. Obviously, if it was many Shabbatot, then you'd be obligated many, but let's focus on one Shabbat. You'd have to bring for that one altogether, and not for each malacha that you did on that Shabbat. But in the other case, with the malacha, where you have to bring a lot, what happened? They said, do you know it's forbidden to plant? Do you know it's forbidden to plow? Do you know it's forbidden to cook? Do you know? And each one, there had to be a knowledge of each one. So that's multiple times that you were told, didn't you know this? Didn't you know that? Didn't you know that? Where you're reminded of several acts. Since it all has to do with the yidiyah, so in that case, the yidiyah was a multiple number of things. It could have all happened at the same time. Did you know it's forbidden to plant, to plow, all those things? But still, it's multiple yidiyot. I'm going to Rav Nachman, but Rav Nachman doesn't like this. He says, Klum parish mishabat, ela mishum melachot, v'klum parish melachot, ela mishum Shabbat. If someone says to you, do you know that you're planting and it's forbidden to plant? What do you mean it's forbidden to plant? It's forbidden to plant because it's Shabbat. No, it's not forbidden to plant on a regular day. And if someone says to you, do you know it's Shabbat? What they're really saying is, do you know it's Shabbat? And you can't do what you're doing. So you can't separate those two. They're all together. When someone tells you, do you know, what made you stop? What made you stop is the combination of the fact that it's Shabbat and melachot or asurot. And therefore, he doesn't like that interpretation. Ela amar Rav Nachman, korban dechiyev rachmana amai ashgaga. What's your chi of korban? It's not all about the yidiyah. The focus is not the moment that you figured out that you did it. That's not what makes you obligated in the korban. It's true that without that, you can't be obligated in a korban. But what's the important part? The moment you sinned. When you accidentally, what did you forget? It goes by what you forgot. Doesn't matter what they told you. It's a matter of at the moment you did the act. That's when it's important. So that's what he really chayav about. He says the shkaga, being unwitting about it. Hatam chad shkaga. What did you forget in the Shabbat case? You forgot one thing. It was a big thing, but you forgot that it was Shabbat. And hacha tuva shkagot havyan. And in the case of melachot, you forgot that it was forbidden to plow. You forgot that it was forbidden to plant. You forgot that it was forbidden to reap. You forgot a number of different things. And that's why, since it all has to do with what you forgot, and the moment that you did it was what you forgot, that's what's important. Okay, so that's the debate here. Okay, the Gemara seems to clearly side with Rav Nachman. He gets the last word in, but is it the moment that you were told, or was it the moment that you forgot? And again, we're going to get back to this concept that it's very tricky to be able to separate Shabbat and Melachot. And I think we're struggling a little bit with understanding this, but the rabbis struggled with, and that's exactly what's going on here, is how do you figure out, how do you separate Shabbat and Melachot? They're all one and the same, or are they? That's kind of the question, right? It's what we had yesterday. You're on a desert island. How do you make Shabbat, right? It's not really Shabbat. You designate one day to be Shabbat, and what do, right? You basically have, what did we say in the end? How do you make Shabbat special? By Kiddush and Havdalah, right? That's what distinguishes it. The Ases, not the Melachot, right? Now, theoretically, that's the answer to this. No, they're not exactly intertwined because there's other things about Shabbat, and this is, right, classic. Is Shabbat all about you can't, and when you learn this Masechet, it's really what you think about for the most part. They don't talk so much about the positive mitzvah. But there's also a lot of the positive mitzvot of Shabbat. It's creating your own environment. What's the environment of Shabbat? Which is actually very interesting. It just dawned on me. Really what's getting at that desert island is that you're allowed to work on Shabbat because you have to survive. So how do you make Shabbat, right? This is classic when you're in the army. And in the army, you have to do Malach on Shabbat. I remember I was teaching someone before her wedding. She was just finishing up the army. And she was in an intelligence unit. And she said to me, it's very weird because I'm not used to having Shabbat anymore. Like basically my Shabbat is like every other day. And, she had to make ways to distinguish. How does she distinguish, this day from any other day? Because when you're doing malacha, even if you're allowed to, you still have to somehow come up with what is my unique Shabbat, right? And I highly recommend, I mentioned it yesterday, the Gefet, which is all the parak of Gefet that's from the Rabbanit Drisha, where really Hannah Dreyfus, she talks all about this issue of making your own Shabbat. It's very interesting. Okay, so now, it's also, by the way, if you don't like listening, it's written up. There's a text, it's written up, and it's also video. Again, all in Hebrew for those who, Hebrew isn't good. There's other English content. There's a lot of good, Talking Talmud is back on the site again, so they talk a lot about this issue also of Shkagan and Sadon and the intertwining of it today, so also a good listen. So now we're moving on. Now we get to a very basic question. Chiluk melachot minalan. Where do we have a source in the Torah that for each malacha you do, you have to bring a separate korban chatat? Now you think, well, I have an easy answer, and it sounds like that. Shmuel says, Amar Kra, mechalaleha mot yumat. Okay, let's read the whole pasuk. Ushmartem et haShabbat, observe the Sabbath, ki kodesh hilachem, because it's sanctified. This is in Shemot Lamed Aleph, pasuk Yud Daled. Mechalaleha mot yumat, those who desecrate it will be killed. Now notice mot yumat has a double lashon. It could just say yumat, which it's going to say in another pasuk. Mot yumat is double. They're going to darshan that soon. Kikolo seba melacha, because anyone who does melacha b'nechortan nefashim mikerav hameh. I just want to review what happens to you if you do something on Shabbat. You do a melacha. If you did it unwittingly, we already learned you have to bring a korban chatat. If you did it on purpose, then it depends. It breaks down into two options. There's mazid where there were witnesses, and not only do witnesses see you doing it, they also have to warn you. Do you know that if you do this, you're going to get punished, this and this? Then you get punished, and what's the punishment? Skila, stoning. It's the most severe. If there's no witnesses, or there's witnesses but you weren't warned, and by the way, usually with the warning, you have to say, yes, I know, and I don't really care, and I'm doing it anyway. If that's the case, and we don't have all that, then you get karet. Okay, so we keep talking about karet, but what it means is karet in the absence of skila. Really, it's skila and karet. So here goes. It says, Mechalaleha mot yumah. HaTorah ribta mitot harbeh. So Shmuel says, look, there's multiple deaths because it says mot yumat in plural. Now, try to do a multiple death by the hands of the Beit Din. You can't get killed twice unless you have 9 lives. Al chilul echad. So mitot harbeh for one chilul. So what do you see here? There you see, that's how you get chiluk melachot. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Hai b'mezik ktiv. How can you learn chiluk melachot that you have to bring a korban chatat, right? Multiple korbanot chatat for one sin, or for one chilul Shabbat. How can you say that that pasuk is referring to that? That pasuk is referring to when you did it on purpose, intentionally. So what do they say? Okay, now we're going to learn a few different drushot today of methods that the Bible was extrapolated. So, Imei no inyan lemezid. Okay, I'll skip a few words. Tenei inyan lezeh. This is what we call an imei no inyan. That means if you have a pasuk that's not necessary, okay, we're going to see in a minute why it's not necessary, meaning that content is said elsewhere, and there's no need for the verse to say it. So we say it must not be talking about that. It must be talking about something else that's similar, but not exactly the same. And we just basically, it's kind of like copying and pasting it to some other topic. So this is what it is. You may know in Yan Mezid, it can't be telling you about Mezid, Dichtiv, and here you see, Ein Mukdamu Muchar B'Torah. We don't really care about the order because they're now going to say the pasuk in Perek Lamed Aleph of Shemot is not necessary because 4 prakim later, it's going to say that exact thing. And there it says, Sheshe Yamim Ta'aseh Melachat Shemot Lamed He Pasuk Bet. Sheshe Yamim Ta'aseh Melachat, 6 days you should work. Uvayom HaShvi'i Yeh Lachem Kodesh, it should be sanctified to you. Shabbat Shabbaton LaHashem. Kol ha'oseh bo melacha yumat. And notice, by the way, yumat is only singular here. Anyone who does melacha will be killed. So there it already tells you you're going to be killed. So therefore, imeno inyan lemezid, teneu inyan l'shogeg, right? So push it onto shogeg. And now it says mot yumat, that means multiple deaths. That means you could do one thing, which includes multiple melachot. Let's say you did one act, or a bunch of different acts. You did one in succession, you did a bunch of different melachot, or theoretically, you could sometimes do one act which you're obligated in a number of melachot. You're going to have to bring a korban chatah for each one. We get that from mot yumat. Now they say, uma yumat. Now it says yumat, you get killed. You don't get killed here. So how do they explain yumat? Yumat b'mamon, financially killed. Okay, it's financial death. Now, why is it financial death? This isn't exactly a financial penalty to bring a korban. You think of a korban, and this is also very interesting. We always think of a korban, okay, you have to bring a sacrifice. We don't often think about the financial toll of a korban. If you have to bring a number of korbanot chatat, that's a lot of money to spend. Okay, so therefore you have to pay the penalty, right? It's like paying ransoming instead of death, you pay a lot of money for all these sacrifices. Okay, so where do we start? We wanted to know where do we get that you have to do. For each malacha, you have a separate korban chatat. They learn it from mot yumat. And even though it's by mezid, we darshan it to shogeg, and then we say, not yumat, but mamon. Okay, that was a lot of jumps. Instead of the Gemara questioning how he got to those drashot, because drashot, the world of drashot, we're allowed, there's an imeno inyan, you can use that, that's fine. But they're going to have a problem. Shmuel's in Amora, and there were Tanaim before him, and we're going to see, there's a very basic machloket Tanaim that comes up a lot in Masechet Shabbat that we're going to learn right now. And both those Tanaim each had different ways to learn Chiluk Melachot. And they're now going to question Shmuel and say, why did you come up with your own drasha when already Tanaim before you had different drashot? Why don't you hold like him? And then they're going to say, if you didn't hold like him, well, we understand, but what about holding like him? So now they say, why didn't he learn it from where Rabbi Natan learned it? Ditanya. Rabbi Natan Omer. Lo tevaru esh b'chomash v'techem b'yom HaShabbat. This pasuk troubled the rabbis a lot. None of the melachot are stated explicitly, although we'll see maybe some, but most of them are not stated explicitly. Right? We've learned that before. We learned them all out from the Mishkan. Right? Why the Mishkan? Because the Mishkan was creative act of man, which matches the creative act of God. It actually merges it because it was creative act of man to worship God. By the way, I didn't mention this yesterday. There were a lot of things to mention yesterday, but in the desert case, right, also there we have this issue of, is Briat HaOlam, by the way, God created the world? Or is it, by the way, man, right? Man's view of the world, right? Which shows the greatness of how important man's creation is that we could theoretically say we're going to count Shabbat by man, right? You're standing on day, wherever day it is, that's going to be your day, like as if you're Adam HaRishon and you have creative powers, right? It's kind of giving the power to man about creation, which is kind of the idea of Shabbat. So now, they say, this pasuk lo tevaru esh b'chomash v'techem is strange. Why does it designate, if it's going to take, why does it specify one malacha, okay? And if it specifies one malacha, why specifically esh? Esh, you would think maybe it's the most important, or theoretically it could be the least important, because making a fire, right, lighting a match, I mean, maybe if you're building a bonfire, it's work, but lighting a match is quite simple. Okay, and even if they didn't have matches in those days, they did have ways to light fire, to make fire pretty easily. So why is lo tevaru esh singled out? So here's going to be a very basic debate. Okay, so to get there, we need to get first through this source. Ma Talmud Omar. So why is it mentioned? So first they start with Lafi shene'amar vayakel Moshe et kol adat bnei Yisrael. Moshe gathered the people, and then it says Eila hadvarim. I'll read you the whole pasuk. Again, it says, this is Shmot Lamed Hey Pasuk Aleph. It's the one right before the Mot Yumat, right before the one that said Yumat, which was really talking about Mazid. So he gathered the people and he says to them, Eila hadvarim asher tziva Hashem lasotam, and then it says, Sheshet yamim taseh melacha, etc. Talks about Shabbat. So what do they darshan with Eila hadvarim? So they take the word dvarim. They say dvarim, hadvarim. They say dvarim is two, that's plural. Hadvarim adds another one, okay? The ha'yidiyah, the things. So now we have three items. And then we say, Eile hadvarim, elu 39 melachot, shene'emru l'Moshe b'Sinai. The word Eile in Gematria, we're now going to have Gematria today, which is taking the value of the letters. Aleph is 1. Lamed is 30. Hey is 5. That gets us up to 36. So we have 36 plus the 3 of Dvarim, Hadvarim. That gets us up to 39. So they see, Eila Hadvarim, these are the things you need to know. What are they? 39 melachot. So that's a reference to the 39 melachot. Shene'emru l'Moshe b'Sinai. We say it's a tradition passed down to Moshe from Sinai. From there, you know, okay, so we know there's 39 melachot, but what might you have thought? You might have thought that if you do these all without knowing that they were all forbidden, and then you find out later, maybe you'd only have to bring one chatat, which we already know not, but they're suggesting. Talmud lomar, therefore it says, becharish ubekatzir tishbot. They're not yet bringing the lo tevaru esh pasuk. We're going to get there soon. There's a classic style of drasha where they bring you the main pasuk, but they don't yet darshan it. They start them, right? They kind of say, this is like, so when you write a paper, the teacher always taught us, right? Put a topic sentence. That's the topic sentence, but we're going to get back to there. It says another, now, even though I said these are the only melachot mentioned, also Harish and Katsir are mentioned, but they're mentioned differently. How are they mentioned differently? First of all, they're mentioned two together. Okay, that's one thing. Number two, they're mentioned not as a lo taseh. It doesn't say don't do this. What does it say? Rest from Harishan Ktsira. That's worded in a positive commandment, not a negative commandment, okay? That's why in the end, they're not going to use this pasuk to prove anything, but they do suggest first, you might have thought you're only chayav one, but the Harish or Katsir shows there's two separate things here, Harish and Katsir. You have to stop doing two things. It says so in the Torah, therefore we're going to assume it's two. But then they say, wait, but if you have it specifically, if the Torah didn't tell you about any other malachot, just told you about Katsira and Harisha, what would you think? Now we know there's 39, but you might think, maybe these are unique, and maybe only those two. Now you have to know rules of how we learn drasha. There's something called the binyan av. If something's mentioned once in the Torah, and it's part of a general group of things, of items, we assume that what's true for that is true for everything else. Once something's mentioned twice in two different areas, this is what we call shnei ktuvim habaim ke'echad ein melamdim. If it's mentioned in two places, we assume it's specific to those two places and not anywhere else. There's actually a machloket about it. Some people say two still can be a binyan av, three no. Okay, there's a debate, but let's just assume two no. So they say, if you just had those two, you might think it's unique to those two and not to anything else. So again, there still are 39 melachot, but maybe only for Ktsira and Harisha, you have to bring a separate korban chatat. Everything else, maybe you would bring the same. Therefore, only one. Talmud lomar, that's why comes this pasuk, lo tevaru esh. Havara bichlal haita. Now we're finally getting to the drasha. Lo tevaru esh was part of the 39. In other words, it was covered already. In the pasuk, don't do any malacha. V'lama yatzat, so why was it specified? Lahakish eleha v'lomar, ma havara shi'av malacha v'chayavin aleh b'fnei atzma, af kol shu'av malacha v'chayavin aleh b'fnei atzma. This comes to tell you, this is a binyan av, okay? We couldn't do a binyan av from the other for two reasons. Either because it was two, and also because it didn't say ever, don't do this. It just said rest from this in the positive, but not in the negative. This one says, don't do this. It's a lo taseh. And they say, this comes to teach you, just like this is an av malacha, just like all the others. And clearly, you're going to be chayav its own korban chata, because it's specified. It comes to teach you, for each av malacha, they used one example so that they didn't have to spend so many verses talking about each one, although you wonder, they spent lots of verses on other things. Would have been nice had they told us all the 39. But the Torah didn't do that. So therefore, av kol shu av malacha chayavim b'fnei atzma. So each av malacha has its own, that's what this teaches you. Okay, that's one approach. This is only Rabbi Natan's approach. So the question is, why didn't Shmuel learn Chiluk Melachot the way Rabbi Natan did from Lo Tevaru Esh? So here we have a very simple answer. Shmuel sever like Rabbi Yossi. Oh, he disagrees with the whole drasha of Rabbi Natan. He holds like Rabbi Yossi in this machlok. So what does Rabbi Yossi say? He thinks Havara is not coming to teach you Chiluk Melachot, and he doesn't think Havara, burning, of making a fire, is on the same level as all the other Melachot. He says, De'amar Havara lelav yatzat. He says the reason why this one's specified is not to say it's like all the others. It's specifically to tell us it's not like all the others. If, we already said, if you do one of the melachot on purpose, you're chayav skila, and without warning, you're chayav karet. Not true for lighting a fire. Lighting a fire is only a lo taseh, no karet, no skila. Okay, you would get malkot, you wouldn't get the harsh punishment. So that's why he says it was specified. It was specified to say this is different from all the others. It's the exact opposite. Instead of saying this is a paradigm for all the others, it's saying this is different than all the others. Here goes their machloket. Ditanya, as it says in the following Braita. Havara lelav yatzat divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Natan omer lechalek yatzat. Okay, it's a very famous machloket that comes up a lot. So remember these words: lelav yatzat or lechalek yatzat. Right? Why was it specified separately from all the others? Either to say it's only a lav, or to say all of them have their own unique korban chatat, and you have to bring one for each one. So now they're going to say, okay, so we get that. So he had like Rabbi Yossi, that's why he didn't have Rabbi Natan. However, they're now going to say that Rabbi Natan had his own drasha. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yossi, I said it the opposite, I think. He held like Rabbi Yossi, not like Rabbi Natan. They say if he held like Rabbi Yossi, well, why didn't they? Sorry, we're 7 lines from the bottom. Then why didn't he learn it? Rabbi Yossi had his own drasha for learning Chiluk Melachot. So why didn't he learn it from there? How do we know this? Okay, and if you look at my chart today, so I put Shmuel on one side with a big black line in between, and then we have 2 other approaches. And basically we're going to say, why did Shmuel hold like Rabbi Natan? We understand because he didn't hold like Rabbi Natan in that whole machloket. He doesn't think that that's the reason why Lo Tevaru Eish was separated. But now we're going to say Rabbi Yossi had his own drasha for teaching this, and why didn't he learn from Rabbi Yossi's drasha? What's Rabbi Yossi's drasha? Ditanya. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Ba'asa me'achat mehena. Okay, this is a very strange pasuk. It says, Nefesh ki tachta b'shgaga. This is our right. This is our whole issue. If you sin unwittingly, Mikol mitzvot Hashem asher lo te'asena. That we darshaned yesterday about the lo te'asena. Va'asa me'achat mehena. Now this term me'achat mehena is strange for a number of reasons. Why didn't it just say va'asa me'achat? And you did one. Why does it have to say achat mehena? Why does it have to say me'achat? It could have just said asa achat. You did one from those. It could have also said you did one those. Now, even though grammatically that doesn't make any sense, but what they're pointing out is it has the word achat hena juxtaposed. It has the word me'achat instead of just achat, and it has the word mehena instead of just hena. So he's going to darshan 3 different things from those 3, or really 3 that are really kind of 4. And 1 or kind of 2 of those are going to be connected to our issue. 2 of them are not going to be connected at all. The first ones are not going to be connected. So Amar Rabbi Yossi, Tanya Rabbi Yossi, what do we learn from this? This is our issue. You can learn sometimes, right? Sometimes you'll be chayav 1 chatat for all of the malachot that you did, right? If you forgot about Shabbat. And sometimes you're chayav for each one. That he learned from Achat Mehena. Now we're going to see how he learns it. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, my time into Rabbi Yossi. How exactly did he get it from the verses? Achat Mehena, Hena Mehena, Achat Shi Hena, Hena Shi Achat. Okay, these are the 4. 1 that's right. 1 and may from 1. These and from these. 1 which is Hena and Hena which is 1. Okay, the last thing is really one thing, but it's going in 2 directions. So it's kind of like 2. So how does it work? The first 2, like I said, are not relevant to us, but they're interesting anyway. Echat Shimon, me'echat Shem. If you did a partial malacha, you could be chayav. In what case is that? There's a big debate. Writing, you're obligated if you write 2 letters. Some people even say if you write 2 symbols, not even a letter, you write a line or something like that. There's a big debate about it. We're going to get to it later in Daf Kuf Gimel. One of the opinions is that if you write 2 random letters, you're actually not obligated from the Torah. You have to write 2 letters that make up a word. And what would be an example? And it would be okay, so if you write the word shame, okay, so that's a whole malacha because you wrote a whole word. Let's say, and we know with Shabbat, your intention is what's important. You intended to write the word Shimon. You start writing, and then one of your kids calls you and distracts you. So you got up to Shin Mem, and then you walk away. Since Shin Mem is a full word in and of itself, you're obligated. So again, this is one approach. One approach would say you're obligated even if you just wrote the word Aleph Vav, even though that actually is a word. But anyway, if you wrote Aleph Chet, okay, no, that's a word. Anyway, whatever. You wrote 2 letters that don't make up a word. So if that's the case, according to Rabbi Yossi, what do we learn? Achat me'achat. You could do partial of a malacha, which would mean you were intending to write the whole thing. You wrote part of it, but the part that you wrote was the minimum 2 letters, and it made up a word. Then you'd be obligated. That's what he learns from there. Heina, mehena. What does he learn from there? Heina is these. Mehena is something from these. Heina is the avot. All the avot malachot, the 39. Mehena, there's toladot. There's things that are like the avot that you're chayav also from the Torah. Here comes our drasha now. Achachi heina. What's one that's many? Zadon Shabbat v'shigigat malachot. You do it right. It's one. You knew it was Shabbat and you intentionally did something wrong on Shabbat, but you didn't know that melachot were asurot. Okay, so you did the melachot with 1 shigigah. That's a chat, but you're obligated. One shigigah. You forgot melachot, but since it was a lot of melachot, you're going to end up being responsible for each one. Heina shehiyachat could be shigigat Shabbat v'zadon melachot. You knew melachot rasurot. You forgot it was Shabbat. So even though you did a lot of things, you're actually only chayav 1. Okay, so there you have his drasha. So now the question becomes, why doesn't Shmuel hold by, if he holds like Rabbi Yossi, that havara lilav yatzat, and it doesn't come lechalek, but Rabbi Yossi has his own drasha. Why didn't he take Rabbi Yossi's drasha? So you now have, again, an Amora who could have taken one of 2 Tanaitic positions. Instead, he came up with his own 3rd drasha. That's strange. So what does he say? Shmuel achat shehena v'hena she'achat lo mashmalei. He doesn't think that's a good drasha, basically. He doesn't hold by that drasha. Okay, you see again, we've talked about this before, even though in general we have a principle that Amoraim can't disagree with Tanaim. When it comes to the world of drashot, it's not the same. When it comes to halacha, we're going to be very particular. Last time we said it wasn't exactly halacha, it was something a little different than halacha. Here it's going to be something that's drasha based, but there's no difference to halacha. Everybody agrees halachically. So basically, in that case, he can actually disagree with them, it seems. Now we have another question. Until now, we talked about shigigat Shabbat versus shigigat melachot. So either you forgot that today was Shabbat, or you forgot that melachot were asurot, but you remembered the other one. What if ba'amine Rava mi Rav Nachman ha'elem ze v'ze biyado mahu? What if you forgot both that it was Shabbat and you forgot that melachot were forbidden? Now what do? Okay, so we're now going to have a problem. What do we focus on? Do we focus on Shabbat and you're only chayav 1, or do we focus on melachot and you're chayav a lot? So the first answer is Amarle Harei Ha'lem Shabbat biyado beino chayav el echad. What's the main thing? You forgot it was Shabbat. It's true. You also forgot the melachot rasurot, but you forgot it was a basic Ha'lem Shabbat. It's true. You also forgot melachot, but it doesn't matter. It's Shabbat. You're only chayav 1. So now the Gemara says, Adrabah, what do you mean? Or it could be Rabbah saying it. When Rav Nachman answered him, it's not clear who says this. If you had ha'elei melachot, you'd have to bring one for every melacha. Here we only added something, right? We added also that you forgot about Shabbat. So why would we make you, if you had ha'elei melachot, and now you have ha'elei melachot and ha'elei Shabbat, we're going to make you obligated less? It seems weird, right? More is less? Seems strange. So he doesn't like that answer, and he says you should actually be chayav everything. Ela Amar Rav Ashi. Okay, so again, it's not clear if it's Rav or not, and Rav Nachman doesn't respond to him, so maybe it's just the Gemara saying that logic doesn't stand. So now they bring in Rav Ashi, Elamar Rav Ashi. And this goes back to something we saw in the beginning of the daf. Chazinan, what do we look at? He says it depends. What does it depend on? It depends on the moment of Yidi'ah. What made you stop what you were doing? Im mishum Shabbat kaparish, harei ha'elem Shabbat biyado, ve'eno chayav ele echat. Ve'im mishum melacha kaparish, harei ha'elem melachot biyado, ve'chayav hakol echat ve'echat. It really depends. What made you stop? Was it that somebody said to you, don't you know it's Shabbat today? And then you said, I can't believe I forgot it was Shabbat. If that's the case, then you're only chayav one. If they said to you, do you know that it's forbidden to plow and to plant and all these other things, and you said, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, then you're chayav on kol echat ve'echat. Again, focusing on the moment of the yediyah is what's important. Well, comes the Gemara of Rabina, and he says, Amar le Rabina le Rav Ashi. That doesn't make any sense. Because again, what do we say? They're all interconnected. Klum parish mishabat ela mishum melachot. Klum parish melachot ela mishum Shabbat. You can't say that. What does it mean? Do you know the planting is asur? Planting is asur. Why? Because it's Shabbat, and it's Shabbat, and you have to know it's Shabbat. Well, what do you mean? What's the relevance? The relevance is melachot. They're all interconnected. You can't say that, and therefore he rejects that. Okay, so now it becomes tricky. What happens? Ela lo shna, he says. It doesn't make a difference. What does it mean? It doesn't make a difference. So Rashi claims that what happens here is we're going back now to the original answer. The original answer was, really, he forgot Shabbat. In other words, I think what they're basically saying, again, according to Rashi's interpretation, one maybe could say it's inconclusive. But Rashi's interpretation is, no, really it's all about Ha'elem Shabbat. Because melachot are only important in as much as they connect to Shabbat. And really the original thing, or the basic thing you forgot is that today's Shabbat. It's true, you forgot what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do on Shabbat. But really you forgot it's Shabbat. And therefore it seems according to Rashi that we would side with you only have to bring one chatat, and that by actually forgetting both, it doesn't make it worse, that you have to bring all the melachot. The key thing is that you forgot Shabbat. And it's a fascinating discussion because, again, it gets back to what I keep talking about, which is what is Shabbat? Is there a definition to Shabbat without melachot, right? What if it goes back to the desert. What does it mean to have Shabbat without melachot? That whole idea, what is Shabbat without melachot? And for the rabbis, who it was all about, all of Masechet Shabbat about the melachot, so to speak, although it's interesting, we didn't exactly start with all the melachot, but how do we understand Shabbat without melachot? Moving on. Tna. Now we're going to have a question on this approach. So assuming we hold like Rashi, that if you have Ha'elem bezo or bezo, you're going to be chayav only one. Comes Rashi, the Gemara, and says we have a problem. Tnan. Avot melachot arba'im chaser echat. It says in the Mishnah, and this is going to be a repeat of what we saw yesterday, 40 minus 1, 39 melachot, v'hevinama. And they question, minyan alamali. Why do we need the count of the 39, of the 39? V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, she'im asa'an kulam be'elem achat chayav kol achat ve'echat. Right, that if you did them all with one act of forgetting, you're chayav on all, each and every one. So this would actually make sense if it means that if you forgot Shabbat and you forgot melachot, then it basically we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan says that would mean if you forgot both that it was Shabbat and melachot, that would make a lot of sense. How will we have a case if you forgot Shabbat and you forgot melachot? How can we possibly have a case where you be chayav 39 korbanot chatat? The only case would be zadon Shabbat and shigigat melachot, right? What would the case be? It would be what we said earlier. It would be where you knew it was Shabbat, but you forgot about the melachot. So now again, what does it mean you knew it was Shabbat? If you know it's Shabbat, you obviously know the melachot are asurot. So now we're going to have a problem. It makes sense, isavar like Rabbi Yochanan. If you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, Damar kevan sheshagag bekaret, afal pi shezi belav, mishkacha la diyada leShabbat belav. This is a repeat of yesterday. We're going to say this works in what case? What does it mean, Zadon Shabbat and Shigat Melachot? What could that possibly mean? It could mean that you knew it was forbidden to do Melach on Shabbat. You just didn't know that you were going to get karet for it. Then we could say, okay, so you only had a Ha'elem when it came to the Melachot because you knew it was Shabbat. You just didn't know it was Chayav karet. But Ela isavar ki Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish amar ad shishgog v'la v'karet tiyada leShabbat b'mai. if it's shgaga of Shabbat is that you didn't know it was a lav and karet, then how could you possibly have zadon Shabbat and shigigat melachot? You would have to know it was Shabbat. Knowing Shabbat means you knew that the melachot were asurot. Again, they can't imagine. How could you know the Shabbat without knowing melachot? And then, again, you'd have to say, there must be the case that you'd be responsible can't be zadon shgaga and shigigat melachot. It would have to be you forgot Shabbat and you forgot melachot. In which case it says you're chayav for each one. And we just said you're only chayav one if you forget everything. So what's the answer? As we saw yesterday, the yadale b'tchumim ba'aliba de Rabbi Akiva. You didn't know about melachot. You only knew about isur tchumim. Now again, we could have said, like we said yesterday, theoretically they could have said the asehs of Shabbat maybe, but they don't say that, right? And again, I in my mind, the rabbis are talking about 3 realms of Shabbat, which is interesting. We normally think about Shabbat in 2 realms: shamor v'zachor. Shamor is observed, don't do the lo taseh. Zachor is all the mitzvot aseh, the positive things you're supposed to do on Shabbat. And Shabbat is these 2 levels, right? And that's the whole thing about the desert. How do we make it Shabbat if we can do malacha? Well, we do it, and that goes back to the army I was mentioning, right? We keep mitzvot aseh. But now the Gemara says something fascinating. There's something else, this isur tchumim. What is this isur tchumim? And isur tchumim sounds so, right? There's even a machloket, there's asur d'oraita d'Rabbanan. But according to the approach of Rabbi Akiva, there's asur midoraita, it's a whole 3rd category. So I tried to think about what does this mean, and you're welcome to think about it, share with me your comments after. In my mind, I started thinking about Shabbat right now, what we're dealing with during Corona, right? It's isur tchumin is you can't go out beyond a certain limit, right? It's normally Shabbat is a day where we celebrate with friends, we go to shul, we have guests over. Now we're very insular, and that there's this element of being insular on Shabbat, right? And that right now, my whole Shabbat looks totally different than it used to look. We have a whole schedule now of what we do on Shabbat. It's a whole different schedule than what we normally do. And we've created our own Shabbat, so to speak, that has a whole different nature to it than it used to. And it has different things that fill it instead of going to shul and instead of seeing other people, right? We've created our own yesh me'ayin, and maybe that's part of this idea of not going out of the tchum, right? There's something about Shabbat that's insular. Spend time with your family, right? Spend time with, right? Sometimes it's a problem. All the kids always go out on Shabbat and no one ever sees their kids on Shabbat. It's the one day everyone's home from work, they can actually spend time inside. And maybe that's what this isur tchumin is about, not going out, but yet staying in. And maybe there's some other elements here that they're referring to. Okay, because the next section is complicated, I want to start it for those who are going to learn the daf on Shabbat on your own. So we're going to do this and continue into the next daf. Amarava, katzar v'tachan ki grogeret b'shigigat Shabbat b'zadon melachot. V'chazar v'katzar ki grogeret b'zadon Shabbat b'shigigat melachot. Here's where we really have to get rid of the zadon. It's going to confuse us a lot. So Rava says like this: you did 2 acts. First, you did 4 acts. First, you cut, you harvested, you reaped. Then you grinded the size of a grogeret. The shiur of a grogeret is the shiur for Shabbat in general. For doing malacha, it's the size of a fig. You did it, the shigigat Shabbat. I'll skip the zadon melachot. Okay, you forgot it was Shabbat. You cut and then you ground the stuff. Then you did it, knowing it was Shabbat, but not knowing that melachot were asurot. Then what happened? Nodalo al ktsira u'tchina. You're going to see in tomorrow's daf is a lot of at what moment did you do the act, at what moment did you get the knowledge, and how did all these things connect with each other. Then you found out that you did ktsira and tchina of shigigat Shabbat. It's very helpful if you look at the chart on the sheet. Then you realized that you did ktsira and tchina, forgetting it was Shabbat. So the first thing you realized. Then before you brought your korban, then it came to your attention that you had also done it the second time when you didn't remember that the melachot were forbidden. Ktsira goreret ktsira, utchina goreret tchina. What does that mean? The first case, it was shigigat Shabbat. How many do you have to bring? 1 korban. 1 korban covers your tachan and katzar because you forgot it was Shabbat. You're only chayav 1. Since that 1 covers you for ktsira and it covers you for tchina, and you did another act of ktsira and tchina, even though it was a different act because it was shigigat melachot, it was the same act, so to speak. The fact that you brought that 1 korban chatat for ktsira covers your ktsira in the other case, and the fact that it also covered your tchina in the first case, it covers your tchina in the second case. So therefore, you're basically covered with 1 korban for everything, even though you did chiluk melachot. Okay? Aval. But what if nodalo al ktsira shel zadon Shabbat b'shigigat melachot? What if first you found out about the shigigat melachot and you first found out about the ktsira, okay? Not about both. You found out about ktsira, and you separate a korban to take care of your ktsira. So what happens now? According to Rava, we're going to see a machloket Rava and Abaye. Ktsira goreret ktsira u'tchina she'ima. Since it's ktsira, it covers your other act of ktsira that you did b'shigigat Shabbat. And since it covers the act of ktsira b'shigigat Shabbat, it also covers your tchina b'shigigat Shabbat because those two are interconnected because you only need one korban for both. So it covers those three acts, but what doesn't it cover? U'tchina she'kenegda b'mkoma omedet. But the other grinding that you did when you forgot that the melacha was forbidden, that's on its own and you'd have to bring a separate korban because it can't cover that. Abaye, however, disagrees. Abaye amar tchina nami goreret tchina shem tchina achati. He says, no. Since now here I put arrows on the sheet, okay? We start with the ktsira of shigigat melachot. You forgot the melachot rasurot. You found out then that you did this ktsira. That one covers your ktsira of shigigat Shabbat. That one then includes the tchina that goes with it because shigigat Shabbat, you only need one for all of them. And that tchina then covers your tchina that you did b'shigigat melachot. So you're covered by everything according to Abaye. The Gemara's question is going to be, this is your intro for tomorrow, does Rava really hold Greira? Okay, does he hold that you can do this, even though Rava didn't hold Greira all the way, right? He stopped at a certain point and said, you can't be Gorer the Tchina, you can be Gorer everything else, but he does allow Greira to begin with, and we're going to see somewhere else that doesn't sound like he does. Okay, and they're going to have questions on that. Okay, with that, Shabbat Shalom.